Awesome. So let's go live on YouTube. Let's just see if it works on this, if it works or not. Live. Let me update the link that you just sent me. Did it work? Awesome. Okay, it works. Yay. Okay, cool. Um, well, welcome everyone. So I'm excited to introduce to you a beautiful soul that I recently met. So I appreciate the beauty of community and Facebook, just the energy. I think it's just interesting how life connects you with all these incredible people. And I was really blown away by your mindfulness, like how you were able to be present, your curiosity, and the beautiful work that you're doing to heal. So in this, we're gonna talk about your journey and what led you. You're part of so many different communities. You have a pretty big social media following, so I'm sure that I'm sure you've met a lot of interesting souls along the way. Hypnosis, I know, is very powerful. I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins, and he's a big proponent of hypnosis. One of the most successful guys I know named Kevin Dorsey. He's a LinkedIn influencer. I think he has like 80,000 followers on LinkedIn. But when I interviewed him, he said one of the most powerful tools that he's used is hiring a hypnotist. So excited to peel back the layers a little bit more to see, well, first, why you got into it, what you enjoy most about your career, and I'm just excited to share your gifts with the world. Welcome, Asha.
With with big pleasure. Thank you for inviting me here on this live. And as you say, like I also feel very blessed that social media and Facebook and other platforms are allowing us to connect and to share with each other what we're doing. And yes,
Mm,
if I can dive into what brought me to hypnosis, um, it's very simple. It's because when I started my journey of transformation, so I've been an entrepreneur since I was 17, 16 years ago, and growth and transformation wasn't really always there. And I've been reaching many ceilings. And very often I would believe that when I would reach a ceiling, that was me and that was my identity. And that was kind of like, destiny. I didn't have any choice there.
mm,
But after traveling for a long time, I ended up in India and started doing meditation.
mm,
And I discovered that, oh, I didn't have limitations. I could go
mm,
further. And so I decided I wanted to become a coach and help people overcome their own issues.
mm,
And I started just, like reflecting on what kind of performance I wanted to bring to people.
mm,
And that brought me back 15 years before when I was studying advertising. And when I
mm.
was studying advertising, I had the chance to be hypnotized by a master hypnotist. We were
Okay.
all 60 people in that room and we went through hypnosis all together.
Huh.
And that day, I didn't understand the power of hypnosis. I knew it was a very amazing tool to get me into a dream state where I could imagine whatever I could have, like lucid dreaming.
Mm,
When I started doing hypnosis as a therapist, I understood the power that lies within it
mm,
because 95% of our actions are subconscious. What we
mm,
do is we create actions in your daily life, in your conscious life, and we just push them inside of the subconscious to have these automated programs. And what's happening is that during the first 6 years of your life, whatever's happening around you is just put inside of your subconscious as the behavior you should use to
mm,
live your life. And there's no filter. And
mm,
I think ideally, from the age of 6 to 14, we should learn who we are. And then during our teenager years, we should have this fire and desire to transform ourselves.
mm. Yeah.
Unfortunately, most people, they're at school and they
Huh.
don't have this opportunity to discover who they are. So that's why most people start this journey when they're in their 20s or 30s and they start really developing. And that's why we see very wise and successful people way
Mm,
later. And I do believe that we could do it earlier. And with hypnosis, what we can do is to enter into that bank of information that's within yourself and
Hmm.
consciously choose what to discard and what to add.
Hmm.
And I really like the idea of we're like a fabric, like the fabric of my sweater has multiple colors because there is multiple threads inside of it. And with hypnosis, what are we doing? We're stretching the fabric of our identity, and we can weave in new skills, new behaviors. And like this, people wake up believing that they can do something that yesterday they could not. In less
Hmm.
than 20 minutes, we can have tremendous transformation just
Hmm.
because we remove one thread and we change it with something new, and the life of the person is just new.
That's interesting, right? So it sounds like most of us are born with like whatever it is, like what our parents teach us, what society teaches us, and it sounds like once we reach a certain age, sometimes it's a little bit harder because there's just so much programming that, whether it's the schooling system, whether it's like media. So what I'm hearing is you're able to reprogram your mind, and maybe there's disempowering stories like narratives that aren't really serving us, but we are almost blind to it. We're unconscious. Like a lot of it is just rooted so deeply that we're not even sure where it came from. We just know that it's affecting our ability to perhaps maybe pursue different goals or to make more money, or to be able to attract different types of people and things like that, right?
Exactly, that's exactly that. I wouldn't say it's more difficult. It's just that there's more work, because the longer
Mm.
you habituate yourself to one thing, the more your brain's pathways are like, this is easy. But then,
Mm.
I've seen transformation that were so quick with these kind
Mm.
of tools that's why I just really want everybody to start them, because in less than 20 minutes, literally, they can change your life. And that's the
Mm.
magic of it. People who've been for decades suffering from a problem,
Mm.
they would really have an overnight success of like, oh, wow, I'm waking
Huh.
up to this.
What was an example? I'm sure there's a few turning points, right? But what was like one of the biggest aha moments that you were able to reprogram when you were training with this master hypnotist?
So the master hypnotist I was talking about, I just had one session with him. That was a
Mm.
discovery 15 years ago.
Mm.
But the one I had that trained me, I would sometimes be afraid of going to the sessions with him because I knew that afterwards I would take some actions that would make me leap.
Mm.
And we know, like, one of the one that felt like the craziest, it was I was in a relationship with a girl, and I felt I was not at my best. I was not valuing myself. And I remember having one session with my master, and just right after the session, I went for a walk, and then I called my girlfriend. And she's like, "Yeah, I think it's over. Like, you're not
Mm.
respecting me." And
Mm.
something that I was pushing for months, that
Mm.
was so ingrained in my relationship patterns, or like, I'm a toxic man. I should not value myself in a relationship. I was really soaked into all this narrative of like men are toxic, men are bad.
Mm.
So I was just voluntarily putting myself lower to not get into a toxic pattern of being a toxic man. But I was
Mm.
allowing women to have negative behaviors towards me, and I was accepting them.
Huh.
And that day, I just called her and I was like, "It's over. I
Mm.
started valuing myself just today." And that is
Mm.
that is the kind of thing that were happening during the training I had with this master. It was just like every
Mm.
week I would have a breakthrough, and I would be like, oh my God, I need to change my life.
Mm.
And the thing is that the eye-opening breakthrough is so big that you don't want to wait to take action. You literally do whatever you can right
Mm.
after the session to make it
Huh.
happen, because you feel that you deserve more, and it's
Mm.
just so natural for you to deserve more. So you're just like, okay, you know what, I don't care to be alone. I'd rather be alone than being disrespected like this. And it
Mm.
goes the same way for business. It goes the same way for
Mm.
whatever. So many times I would have been scared of doing something, scared of asking a price, scared of giving a price, and then I would just like, hey, I know I need to do it, so
Mm.
why don't I just go into trance, find out the
Mm.
resistance, and remove it?
That's profound. So many people, I think we reach like a breaking point, like a turning point where we're like, when the pain becomes too unbearable, that's when we start to take action, or that's when we are more diligent about taking that next step. How can we not reach to the point of where we're rock bottom in order to take that plunge? Like, how do we trust our intuition, and how do we seek and be more curious, right? Versus, waiting till when there's a little less hope, and then, that's what
Yeah,
I have noticed. Like, people always reach rock bottom before they take that plunge.
I totally understand that, and I've been there too. Like 7 years ago, I used to snort cocaine nonstop. I would wake up, take a line of cocaine, and
Hmm.
my day would go like this. And at the
Hmm.
time when I decided to change my life and improve it, it was very easy and straightforward to know what was the problem. When you're snorting cocaine all
Hmm.
the time, you know that you have a cocaine
Hmm.
problem.
Yeah.
But then when I'm here today, where I've been like a health nut for so much time, and I've been like really
Hmm.
like checking what can I optimize in my life, and it very becomes very subtle and very hard for you to understand what is
Hmm.
really hurting you, what is really the problem that is getting you stuck and preventing
Hmm.
you from evolving,
Yeah.
which needs a lot of awareness. So what I would say is you need to have a mentor. You need to have someone to
Hmm.
work with, and also a community behind you to make you feel safe. Because
Hmm.
one of the very important thing we need to understand is that humans, they need to feel supported, because we know we cannot survive on our own. And that's the first
Hmm.
lesson we learn when we're babies. Any kind
Yeah.
of animal, any kind of mammal, in the 5 minutes of their birth, they can walk. You have like a cow, it's just gonna be birthed. 5, 10 minutes later, it's gonna be able to walk, drink the mother milk, and even eat grass. A human baby needs 3 years at least to be able to walk. And what we
Hmm.
do the first 3 years, we just scream and ask for support. So we human, it's very ingrained into our DNA that we need to have people to recognize us into our new self. So it's very important to be part of a community and have people who observe us, but also give us um, this information with love and kindness. If someone comes and slap your face and you say you're a piece of shit, you need to change, that's not gonna help you. But if someone
Hmm.
had say, hey, I see that the goal you want to reach is here. Let me push you there with gentleness, and you will see that there's a resistance that's going to come. And when you
Hmm.
see the resistance coming, you need to strip it down. So a lot of
Hmm.
self-observation is needed, and comparison. People say
Hmm.
don't compare yourself to others. It's been a big theme on social media, but
Hmm.
I believe that when you're able to compare yourself and stay grounded in who you are and say, okay, I'm not like you. Clearly, first thing I noticed that you don't have the same haircut as me, and I'm
Hmm.
comparing it.
Huh.
To know that who you are, I need to compare myself to you. But most people
Hmm.
don't accept who they are. They're like, oh, I'm not like him, so I'm not good enough. So comparing yourself to the people you want to be and accepting where you are, and then bridging
Hmm.
the gap. That's very important to remove these little things. Comparing yourself, observing yourself, and then yeah, having people that will help you with love to move forward.
Hmm. So I mean, you're a big proponent of community and finding your tribe. Um, I have felt lost, like I felt like a wanderer, like I felt like I was always like a chameleon, like trying to adapt to a lot of different types of communities. How do we go about, because it just feels like as people go through different stages of their lives, like they find, or they move away, or they aren't making as much of an effort to stay in touch with you, right? How do you go about dealing with the grief of having people closest to you move away, whether it's friends or family? And then how do we go about finding the tribe, but and then what if it feels like we're doing most of the work, and the other person's not reciprocating that same sort of energy or effort as you are?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I would say I'm not a specialist into relationship and community management. But what
Mhm.
I would say, is first thing is that you need to understand that everybody has a moment in their life that will connect with you,
Mm.
especially today in today's world where people like us, we're so open to many communities, as you were saying, like
Mm.
I don't see myself fitting just in one community because I have a very an array uh, of hobbies and things I like to do. I love to do improv theater, I love to cook, I love to paint, I love to
Mm.
have works, I love to do yoga. All of these different hobbies I'm having don't fit in one community, you know. So I need
Mm.
to scatter myself a little bit.
Yeah.
And what I would say, is that if you start noticing that you taking some distance with some people, well, ask yourself, do you still need their presence in your life?
Mm.
There are things that we need at a certain point in life, like when you start riding a bike, you need these little wheels on the side to get balance. But at one point, you don't need
Yeah.
them. So would you miss that thing that you don't need anymore?
Mm.
So it's really, like I think it's nostalgia and this desire of safety that makes us want to keep connection with people. But in the
Yeah.
end, if you have
Mm.
15 people that are close to you that are bringing you something, I think
Mm.
it should be enough. I
Mm.
don't have like an advice of like, hey, how to grieve it, but just
Mm.
focus more on on the connection that are working rather than
Mhm.
asking yourself why is it not working. It's the same with sales. If in sales
Mm.
you are trying to sell something to someone who's not ready to buy, you're gonna
Mm.
ask yourself, why am I not making sales? But if you
Mm.
have like 10 people lining up ready to buy and you just focus on them, you'll get the money in. If you
Mm.
focus on the three people who are not buying, you're just
Mm.
gonna ask yourself, what's the problem with
Huh.
me? It's the same
Mm.
with your friends. You might have five
Yeah.
friends who are wanting to interact with you. Maybe you have one friend that had so much memories with you,
Mm.
but this guy might have something happening in his life.
Mm.
I don't believe in the idea of that being introvert or extrovert. I believe that's
Mm.
something fluid
Mm.
because I see myself, there are weeks I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't even want to
Mm.
post anything on social media, even if I had a content that is ready. I don't want
Right.
attention. But there are
Right.
moments where I'm wanting attention and I'm craving
Mm.
it. And I'm not just, hey, give me attention. Look at me. I have this to show. I have this. So, trying to understand what is your rhythm and find the people who are in the same rhythm as you.
Yeah.
If you're trying to
Mm.
dance with someone who is not listening to the same music as you,
Mm.
it's not gonna work.
Yeah. That's profound. I love what you said, right? It's because I think there's a lot of wisdom in what you just said. I think there's it's funny, right? Because you're right. I think like for the last year, there was a part of one of the communities that I used to be very involved with, but to be honest, like I was just so focused on my marriage, so I wasn't as involved with that community. But it was great because they actively reached out to me. They were like, "Hey, like we miss you. Like what's going on?" Right? Versus to your point there's times where I hate to say I'm being needy, right? But at an unconscious level, like there's certain friends that like I just really miss and like I really want to spend time with them. And but to your point, they're busy. Like they just got married, they just bought a house, they moved away. Like there's who knows what's going on, right? There's a lot of stuff at work. If I'm just focused on me, then yeah, maybe that energy is not attracting them, right? Where if I'm compassionate sounds like one of the things you said is like be compassionate, like empathy, and also focus on the good. Like, hey, like we had all these amazing memories and cherish that and be happy that that happened, right? But not don't be so attached to like trying to relive those moments is what I'm hearing.
This is exactly that, man. That's one thing that came to me one time when I fell in love, and I was like, oh my God, I want to spend all my
Mm.
life with that person. And
Mm.
then while meditating, it came to me that I am trying to block that person in that moment.
Mm.
We are supposed to grow and evolve. And if you want to live the same moment of love and happiness with the same person, you're trying to force them to stay like this. It's
Mm.
like, oh, I met you in this heightened love emotion,
Mm.
and I want you to be in that emotion all the time for me. And that's very
Mm.
selfish because the person might, you might have one week of full heightened love with that person, and that person might have a loss in their family and just be very sad. And then you would meet them wanting to have this hand in love, and then you would meet them in this sadness, and would be like, this isn't the
Hmm.
same person I met.
Huh.
And accepting that the people will evolve as well, and accepting that what we want, we're trying to recreate a memory of the past rather than living the future.
Hmm.
And when we're just focusing on, okay, I cannot expect that person to give me the same thing again. It
Huh.
feels safe. It's the same with our parents. We expect our parents to give us the same love, but they need to evolve too. They need to
Hmm.
also grow in their life.
That's deep. I'm hearing attachment. Like I think yes, it's good. Maybe it's good to be sentimental every once in a while, just to cherish like the memories, just to relive some of like the great memories, just to show you like, hey, like these are some of the emotions, positive emotions that like that I enjoy about life, right? But with anything, it can become an addiction. It could become a way of escaping, or it could be just it's just unrealistic that because people change, we change, and we all have this idealistic like fantasy world, but the reality happens, and being able to be present in the moment instead of so fixated on the past or too uber focused on the future can lead to anxiety, could lead to depression, could lead to some of the more unhealthy emotions slash attachment styles, right?
Totally, totally, yeah.
Mm. So, it sounds like you're a world traveler. You like meeting a lot of different people, right? How do because one of the things that I find beautiful about traveling and meeting all kinds of people is like it's great because in the beginning it's exciting, right? And you're meeting them, you're like curious, like, oh, like what is your life like, right? How do you go about discerning like who to stay in touch with and who because I have trouble like if it was up to me, like I would love to stay in touch with everyone, but the reality is that it's impossible, right? Especially if you've met thousands and thousands of people, over the course of your lifetime. So, do you naturally, like, if you're thinking about them, you reach out, or are you purposeful in like your relationships and you're like, okay, these 20 people, like, I want to maintain and cultivate deeper relationships with, and everyone else, like, if it happens, it happens.
Yeah, it started. I mean, last year was really the year where I was really starting to reduce the amount of my attention spreading and being like, oh, I need
Mm,
to refocus. I really want to build
mm,
my life, my business, and all the things that I want there.
mm,
And so I started to think like, who are the people that really are working in my direction? And it's not where they are, but it's really what kind of energy they're putting. Do they want to grow? Do they take responsibility for themselves? I'm
mm,
looking for certain traits in
mm,
people, and then I see, are they evolving? And I don't attach myself to how much time I'm gonna be evolving
mm,
with them, they're gonna be evolving with me.
mm,
And in the end, the only relationship you have is the relationship you have with yourself.
mm,
All relationships you have on earth, you need to accept that they might vanish at one point,
mm,
because people die,
mm.
and that's the sad reality, and people change.
Wow.
So you need to cultivate the relationship with yourself most,
Mm,
and then see who can help you develop that. And right now, what I'm really looking at is that the relationship I want to cultivate are the people who are working to a direction that feels good for my future and for
mm,
their future. And I'm also
mm,
thinking about the next generation. For
mm,
me, what I've suffered is already done. My goal is to establish a ground for the next generation not to have to suffer the same thing. Probably
mm,
they will suffer something else, and that will be their part of transformation. But
mm,
what I see is that we've received the world in a way, as beautiful as ugly we want to see it is.
mm,
And our role and our purpose as human is to take the world from where it is to the next step.
mm,
And looking at people around me who is really active into that.
mm,
And that's where you are getting fulfillment, is to see people grow. And happiness is not the reaching of a goal, it's the freedom to pursue this goal.
mm,
If you are focused on someone else's goal, you might not be happy unless their goal is part of your bigger vision. No.
mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. It sounds like you're focused on quality relationships and people that are mission driven, people that have a strong sense of self, people who are passionate, who are focused on making the world a better place. And because of that, it sounds like the quality of your life and just the quality of conversations are higher than in the past when you were letting people in that, maybe just people that you weren't intentionally choosing to be with, but just, happen to just like be near you or just but because you're growing, because you're always evolving, you have a better boundaries around the type of people that you let into your, just not only from a mindset, right, but just from a quality of life as well, it sounds like.
Yes, exactly, exactly. You know, what was very interesting is that coming back after 6 years of travel and learning all these tools and also learning how to create more connection with people, I realized that in the few months coming back here, I've been able to get to know people I knew for decades so much
Mm.
more. Because it's
Mm.
not about how much time you spend with people, it's about the
Mm.
deepness of connection you are ready to go with.
Mm.
And that only happens when you're ready to go deep within yourself. And which is interesting because hypnosis also allows you to look at yourself from within, and you can understand that the deeper the relationship with yourself, the more you accept yourself, the more you're opening yourself, and the more you can connect with people, because we are like, pieces of a puzzle, and each time you open, you just have one more connection, and then you can grab onto people. If you just
Mm.
very close, you just have one connection and it just can
Mm.
slip off. But the more you open, the more you can connect, and the more the deeper relationship, and that's the beauty of it.
Mm. I love that puzzle visualization. And so you traveled a lot. What are some of the most like interesting realizations you've had about yourself from traveling so much and from going on that journey?
Yeah, well, the most interesting, and that's one of the reasons why I started doing hypnosis and teaching it, is that all the problems I was trying to run away from kept coming with me.
Hmm.
And that's where I realized this sentence that I've heard already before, like you are the common point between all your problems.
Mm.
And by living in different big major cities of the world, I
Hmm.
realized that all these problems were always the same. And then I realized, okay, moving to a new place, having different jobs or occupation is not changing the problems. That made me realize that the results that was seeking, having more money, having a bigger house, were not solving my problems. They were just appearing to be better. But then what I understood is that I don't have to run after anything. If I want to feel better, it's happening here. It's not having because I had, a big villa on the beach. I had all of these things that I had
Hmm.
the location freedom, financial freedom. I had all of these things, and I believe that,
Hmm.
oh, financial freedom is gonna make me happy. Okay, here is 50K
Hmm.
on my account. Well, I have a lot of money. I can live as much time as I want without working. Then, oh,
Hmm.
I'm traveling in so many countries. It didn't
Hmm.
make me feel better. It was interesting, but it's always this rush. And so I
Hmm.
understood that yes, it's important to have quality of life, but then if you cannot sit still on the beach and feel good, nothing's
Hmm.
gonna change it. And that is was the biggest understanding, is that you cannot run away from your problems. They
Hmm.
will pop up somewhere. So the only way to end your problems is to go within and solve them, and then like accept that you have so much more power, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, that resonates very deeply with me. As someone who was always seeking external validation, working at LinkedIn, getting promoted, winning Employee of the Month, and all these awards like winning culture and LinkedIn's Culture and Values Award, Relationship Matters, right? So much of my energy was focused on people pleasing behaviors, like always. And don't get me wrong, some of it, I think at that stage in my life, like it served me, right? I was able to make all these friends and was able to rub shoulders with very successful people. But I saw myself like being drained and the energy, and I just felt like it was almost like an addiction where it's like, oh, I need to like meet more people, have more coffee chats with more successful people. But I realized eventually that I was running away from, because it was hard for me to be with myself, right? So I tried all these different types of meditation, transcendental meditation, Zen Buddhism. Some of the in New York City, there's a lot of these like different meditation studios, like at the temples and going to retreats and whatnot. And then I realized like, oh, like I am lovable, like I am, and then I started being kinder to myself, giving myself grace, but it was a long journey. And I think most of us were always chasing the next high, like you said, the next promotion, the next big commission check. And then once we get all that money, we realize, huh, like I still feel empty. Like I thought this $40,000 commission check would make me happier, but all it did was it made me escape on that vacation for that 1 week. But then when I went back, I still had to be with my insecurities and my problems and my issues. And yeah, to your point, I was still running away from myself. But then I eventually realized like, oh, there's nothing to run away from. Like I'm fine as is. So,
Really. And that's, like that is the I think the biggest achievement we can do in life is to achieve ourselves. That's all. Everything that you do outside of yourself, it just takes time, you know. Like when you see people making $1 million, you're like, oh my God, so much money. And then when you do $1 million, you're like, yeah, it just took me 2 years, 3 years, and I did it. And then you're like, oh, that's not impressive anymore.
hmm,
And when we realize that impressive things take just time, is like we have time. We all have time. So what do we do with it? And spending it with yourself, that's how you fill yourself with that energy. And then you
hmm,
just stop spreading your energy, and you have enough energy just to live and to feel good.
hmm. Yeah, it sounds like you're making it sound very simple, and maybe sometimes it is that simple, right? But I do think it takes a lot of introspection, right? It takes a lot of intentionality in, having a coach like yourself, or in my cases, I had like 12 different coaches that I've hired throughout my lifetime. And every coach in that season of life where I was gave me something, right? Like there was a season where having a coach that was all about optimism and vision and more planning was helpful. And then there was a coach who was more like tough love and like being more of a mirror and pointing out things, like pointing out different blind spots, right? And then there was a coach that was like about healing the intergenerational trauma, right? So there's a lot of different coaches. I think it doesn't hurt to try and just see the energy that you vibe with, and then um even if it doesn't work out, like you still learn something about that experience. So how do you go about choosing um which coaches to learn from, and where to um know like, hey, this is a good use of my energy and my time.
Well, that's a good question. I think generally it goes with my intuition. I don't look at the past record of the people, because I do believe that we're going forward. If I'm looking at what people did before, it might not be. I'm looking at my life. If I was looking at my past, I would never been in this future, you know.
Hmm,
And 10 years ago, I would never imagine myself being a therapist. I would never
hmm,
imagine taking people and helping them transform their life. I was too much
hmm,
busy enjoying cocaine and champagne to think that one day I would want to have a chill life and
hmm,
be more grounded and stable. So it's really my intuition. I take people on calls when I want to work with them, and I'm listening to them to see what is the direction they're taking. And regardless of their age, regardless of what they know how to do, if after one session they're able to love and accept me the way I am, that's what I need. And that's what we all
hmm,
need. Like the most basic thing. I've had coaches who charged 2 grand an hour, and it felt too much. They needed to have a result after a session. From the beginning of a session, they're like, I am the best coach, you need to show me a result at the end of the session. You need to have a breakfast, and you feel that The amount
Mm.
of hours I've spent studying was necessary. While
Mm.
I had moments where I tried to overdose myself on drugs, and a friend came to me and just being like, "Hey, man, it's okay." This guy wasn't even a coach, and he was just there, friendly and loving, and that was
Mm.
enough.
Mm.
We're humans, and our brain or psyche, everything that makes us human and alive, needs genuine contact.
Mm.
And that is the most important. If the person in front of you genuinely wants you to win, doesn't matter if they won before. Because
Mm.
a coach, a cheerleader, for example, like if you coach a president, if you coach an Olympic athlete, you yourself, maybe you've never been there, but you're giving them energy and you're giving them the support for them to fall back. Because the only thing that's
Mm.
really scary is to fall back on nothing. If you're doing something that feels scary and someone is there to keep you on the spot, you'll drive. Like being a coach is literally being a dad with a kid who is learning to drive a bicycle when you remove the little wheels and just be there around it. Like, hey, if you fall, I'll catch you and you won't
Mm.
hurt yourself. And that's what we need in coaching. Because, like the biggest transformation in a coaching happens during the sale. It's during the sale
Mm.
that you decide that you're going to be someone else.
Mm.
Like I'm going to hire a new coach. I'm going to hire a coach that is going to get me to be the best speaker in the world.
Mm.
It's not the coach who's going to make me a speaker. The coach is going to be along me while I'm making myself a speaker.
Mm.
I am putting my effort, my energy into becoming a speaker. He cannot do it for me. Same thing. You want to develop your muscle mass, you're gonna go to the gym. If you go to the gym by yourself, you're gonna do it. If you want to go faster or higher, you'll hire someone. This guy is not gonna lift the weight for you. He's
Mm.
just gonna look at you, and when you're gonna be lazy and go one less, he's gonna like, I know you can do five more. And that's
Mm.
what a coach is there for. A coach is there to look at you and know your limits and just push you a little bit over, just a little bit over, so the next day you want to come back, not to exhaust yourself. Because if you exhaust yourself, you're breaking the relationship you have with what you're doing. What's
Mm.
very important is to have a positive relationship with what we're doing. That's the long-term thing. It's the same thing with addiction. People who are addicted to drugs, they have a very good relationship with the drug. The drug is giving them so much pleasure, they just go back to it.
Mm.
The day the pain the drug is bringing, if someone is smoking and their lung is hurting so much that every time they have a cigarette in their mouth, they just feel pain, it's very easy to break the relationship with the thing. Everything with us for long term is a relationship status.
Mm.
The day your coach is not giving you enough uh, transformation for how much you're paying, you stop working with them.
Mm.
And that's very simple. Find people who brings more into the relationship than what you think you're losing.
Mm.
This is the ratio that you need to work with. If you feel that they're bringing something to you, if you feel that what they're bringing is positive to you, you'll keep on having a relationship with them.
Yeah.
Once something or someone is not bringing you anything positive in life, you naturally be like, okay, I need to break up with them.
Right. Yeah. So, I've also I went through stages of different drug addictions as well throughout certain stages of my life. Why do you think you were addicted to cocaine, it sounds like? Was it because everyone else was doing it, or was it because you enjoyed the feeling of when you were hot, like when you were at your peak?
So multiple factors. So I grew up with ADHD, but it was never diagnosed until I was 27. It's actually when I received the diagnosis of ADHD that I understood that I was not a junkie and I could stop. So two factors. So with ADHD, I had difficulty focusing and I had difficulty
Mm.
performing, which created a huge imposter syndrome. Because with ADHD, sometimes you have this burst of passion and focus, and you can learn something and you just could be the best at it,
Mm.
which feels like you have this inner genius that is not very mastered. And so I had that thing of like, oh, I'm able to perform and outperform others, but I'm not controlling it. So when I was taking
Mm.
cocaine, it was giving me the confidence that I could do it, and I would use that to fuel my performance. But then one day, I would just wait, it was too much, and I met a psychiatrist, and she told me like, dude, you're not a junkie. You have ADHD,
Mm.
and but you need to take prescription drugs. And that was just like
Mm.
a like no, please no. I'm coming here because I have a drug problem, and you want me to take another drug to solve
Mm.
that? So that was also a very a good point because it allows me to seek for alternative solutions. I did not
Mm.
want it to replace cocaine with a prescription drug. I was like, this is a no go. I'm gonna find something else.
Mm. Yeah, and that it sounds like, and that's what led down the path of hypnosis and
Yeah.
meditation and more natural, holistic alternatives, right?
Exactly, exactly. Because for 10 years, I consumed five different drugs from coffee to weed, cocaine, tobacco,
Mhm.
alcohol, just to feel like normally functioning. And also, like when you're in that spiral of I'm taking one drug, I can take two more drugs, doesn't matter.
Mm.
But that was allowing me to perform at a very good level. But today, what I'm doing is that I'm not rejecting drugs. I don't think drugs are a bad thing. I think drugs allow us to perform to a certain level. But I believe that we should use them in extreme conditions. If you're drinking coffee every day, you're relying on to coffee and tomorrow's energy to be awake. But then if
Mm.
you're doing breath work, you'll have that energy. You have your heart pumping. And so today I'm able to perform even better than before. And I'm older and I have less energy and more fatigue and more other things to do. But I'm performing way better because I know how to use my brain and body and I know how to optimize it naturally,
Mm.
which is raising my confidence so much more. Because a few years back, I was scared of traveling. I needed to end my addiction in order to be having this freedom lifestyle and travel around the world. Because before that, I would not go somewhere if I didn't know that I could have drugs. Like I went to a few places. Did a few vacation travels, but only in places where I knew someone living there and consuming as much drug as me, because I needed to fool myself all the time. And right now, I know I can stay 3 days without eating, and that it's not a problem. It's not gonna kill me. I
Mm.
can do 30 minutes in an ice bath, and I survive it. So like no, I can go out in the winter topless and feel like hey, it's okay, it's normal.
Mm. Yeah. So it sounds like you are very intentional about training your mind so that you're able to be in uncomfortable situations and then you get used to that uncomfort, right? So then it becomes more of a baseline. So then you're pushing the boundaries of like what's possible. Um, and it also sounds like you notice you experiment with a lot of different things, right? Whether it's like trying coffee or trying ADHD medicine and meditation, hypnosis, Wim Hof, ice baths. Like I think there's a double-edged sword with everything, right? I personally think that there's so many modalities out there and everyone responds differently to different things. Like to your point, like you kind of just have to try. But I also feel like sometimes in the self-development game, there is a sense of fixing, right? Fixing like what's wrong with us. Like for instance, like I've tried buying all these supplements, like every supplement, from like ashwagandha to, cordyceps to like just a lot of different things, reishi, lion's mane, and stuff like that. But I'm not gonna lie, like if I was to add up all of the money I spent on all these different supplements, right, whether it's like green tea extract or whatever, vitamins and stuff like that, where do we find that balance where we don't quote unquote have to like fix ourselves, but more of like an empowering way to look at, alternative medicines and things like that?
Uh, I think the answer is very simple. So there is two things, and there is a lot of confusion in between the two. There is transformation and personal development. Transformation is change. Personal development is the increase of what you have. So, for example, I was talking about making a sale. when you make a sale with a new coach, when you hire a new person, the transformation happen at the moment when you hire them.
Hmm.
Once you're in their container, once you're working with them, you develop something. So, for example, I'm hiring you as a coach to overcome my imposter syndrome. At the moment I'm hiring you, I'm breaking this habit of saying I'm an imposter because I made the decision I don't want to be it in him. And that's the transformation,
Hmm.
that's the change. And then we're going to develop this new identity together. And that's where we need to see. And many people are stuck into I need to change, I need to change, I need to change.
Hmm.
And they're stuck in this, oh, I'm broken, I need to heal. And then in this pattern of like, I need something needs to change in my life. Actually, no. You need to develop the skills that you have. And by developing them, you'll go further. And many people make you believe that you need to change something in your mindset to go from 10K to 50K, and you need to change your mindset from 50K to, maybe not. I my first like 200 grand, there was no change of mindset. I just made more money, and that's all. I just
Yeah.
optimized my products. I had like I was selling like weed, and what did I do? I just decided I would make more premium my products. I would
Hmm.
stop selling the low entry, which has have
Hmm.
like bigger package, be more beautiful packages,
Hmm.
and better customer relationship. There was no
Hmm.
change in my industry, there was no change in my mindset. I just decided I would improve the things, and that I
Hmm.
developed something better. And so we need to just have this clarity. If I'm going with this way, will I reach my goal, or do I need to change the way? For example, like for me, change is very important when you're having unhealthy habits, you know. And for example, you're doing CrossFit, right? So
Hmm.
if you wanna make more mass, you'll have to lift weight. That's gonna be a change. But when you start lifting weight, you're gonna start with a 10 kilogram, for example, and then slowly you're gonna go to 20 step by step. That's development. Some people might be like, oh no, for to go to 20, I need to change my mindset. No, you just
Hmm.
need to get more some muscles. So for
Hmm.
example, same thing with CrossFit. If you have this amount of time for one exercise and you want to increase your heart rate, you need to do more exercise in less time. And that's a development, that's not a change. And it goes for the same for everything. So just shift yourself from, do I need to change something, or do I need to have the patience to go further? Because today's in social
Hmm.
media we have a lot of like, yes, let's go fast and this and this, and we
Hmm.
and we see people posting every day, and we see people doing things, are like, how do they have like superpowers? No, they just are further along the way than us.
Hmm.
You don't need to change anything from where you are to go to getting to the next step. Sometimes you don't need to change anything. But this idea that if I'm not there yet, I'm broken, that's what makes you suffer. And just accepting that the way you are, you just need to keep on walking. That's just
Hmm.
one step after the other. Yes, you want to make a leap, but the leap is not gonna happen because the direction is here.
Hmm. Very profound. Yeah. I think we live in a society that's always preying on other people's weaknesses. And there's always like, oh, you need to be more masculine. You need to, doing this, or you need to lose weight, because like blah, blah, blah. Right. So there's just a lot of shame around who we are, right? Whether it's what we look like, our beliefs, some of our weird passions, or things that society deems like, oh, like that you're different. So I love what you said about just accept, instead of like always trying to like fix what's broken, like, I think adding making incremental strides, right? In more development, more of just like, hey, like if I continuously to build this practice and realize that it takes time as well, right? Because from the outside on social media, it's like, oh my God, how does he have like 20,000 followers? Like that'll never happen. Like maybe they know something I don't know, right? But they don't realize, the 20,000 followers is like going to hundreds of events, having a lot of coffees, like, doing things like this, right? So, um, yeah, Asha, thank you so much for joining. This has been really valuable. A lot of takeaways and um, being able to accept ourselves, being able to explore and just explore and try different things, being intentional about our relationships and our communities that we're building, and also a lot of mindset related topics. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, they can get in touch with me on Facebook or Instagram. That's the quickest ways. And also be clear why they want to reach out. Like I want to help people, but I also feel like if they're not clear on what they want from me, I will not be
Mm.
able to help them. That's very important. And also, yeah, if they have any question, they can come. I'll always be there for them to answer.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I also want to acknowledge you for the intentional community that you're building, like expanding the higher consciousness and connecting a lot of beautiful souls together. I know it's not easy to be consistent and to put yourself out there every day. So I want to acknowledge the energy and the thoughtfulness and the intentionality that you put into all of your endeavors. And I have no doubt that you'll continue to really make a difference by leading by example, but then also by um, just sharing and being vulnerable. So thank you for sharing about some of the journeys and some of the obstacles that you've encountered and how you were able to overcome it. And yeah, I have no doubt that you'll continue to inspire others through your practices, through your hypnosis and your teachings and all the people that you're bringing together.
Yes, I will. And thank you for inviting me. It was very delightful to share my experience and to answer your questions.
Amazing. All right. Let me